Hi there, I'm Brad Pitt. Hey everyone, I'm Matthew Cornwell with Get Taped here in Atlanta, Georgia, one of Atlanta's original audition taping services, which I co-own with my amazingly talented, beautiful wife and best friend, Brooke. Ain't no lying about that. And now on to our topic. When it's okay to lie. First of all, I want to tease a call to action at the end of this video. For those brave enough, I'll be asking you to share something in the comments below, so be sure to stick around for that. Okay, spoiler alert, don't lie. Whoever raised you should have instilled that virtue in you. But you know, the more I think about it, in life, that's sort of a gray area, isn't it? If a friend of yours has a really bad haircut and they are insecure and ask you, hey, what do you think? Oftentimes we don't tell the truth. We tell them what they want to hear, and we call that a little white lie. But those little white lies in life are really about our opinions. You're asking my opinion, and so at that moment, I have a choice to make about whether my opinion is necessary or whether it's just going to cause you pain and anguish and cause tension in our relationship. But what about our acting careers? And I'm not talking about opinions. I'm talking about when questions are asked of us that require factual answers. When is it okay to bend that truth? Well, let's look at a few examples where actors are tempted to lie or even just exaggerate the truth. And we'll look at the ramifications. Okay, let's start with the resume, whether it's the physical printed out resume or your actor's access profile or whatever. When it comes to credits on your resume, do not lie about them. You will get caught. In fact, I remember a casting director talking about a situation where they had an actor come in, they flipped over their headshot, were looking at their theater credits, and their interest was piqued because there was a credit from a theater in which they were the artistic director at the time of that production that was listed. And they looked at that actor and said, I didn't cast you. How uncomfortable is that? When you do decide to lie, you have a choice to make. If it's a theater credit, you have the choice of either lying about the theater and the production, making up a title, making up a theater, in which case it'll mean nothing to that casting director because they've never heard of either. But if you try to do a half truth, half lie, where you lie about the production, but it's a real theater company, you're going to get caught. And if it's a TV film credit where you make up everything, it's just ink on paper, doesn't mean anything. But if you create a real TV film title, but a fake role, you just see how there's no way to win. You're either creating a complete lie that will mean nothing, or you're doing this half truth that will get you caught. So stop lying. So if you lie about a theater credit, you're going to get caught. If you lie about a film and TV credit, you're going to get caught. Now, the other nuance to this is if you've done some background work on a project and you're trying to pass it off as principal work, don't do it. Background work does not belong on an acting resume. And the reason is for 99% of background work, all you had to do was submit a headshot and get picked. There wasn't any skill involved to earn that role as that background actor. So that doesn't belong on an acting resume. The only thing that belongs on an acting resume are true credits that required an audition process, that required you being vetted for your skill level as an actor in order to book that role. Okay, so now let's talk about your stats. When it comes to your height, don't lie, even though I know you do. Most people, though, only lie about maybe a half inch. And for the most part, that won't get you into trouble. That said, I've seen so many instances where auditions will specifically have a height requirement. So I've seen cases where you had to be over 6 foot tall, or you couldn't be taller than 5'10". And if you're lying, well, it's just not going to end well. So don't exaggerate your height more than a half inch in either direction. Okay, for your weight, there's not many times you'll be required to give your weight, but if you are listing your weight on your stats, don't list your goal weight. This isn't your driver's license. List your actual weight and keep it updated. And for the rest of your sizes, please keep those updated. When you book a job, you don't want the costumes department to try to get ahead of the game by looking at your size card on Actors Access and going out and buying a bunch of clothes only to find out at the fitting you don't resemble those sizes anymore because the last time you updated that size card was before the 2020 lockdown. That's very frustrating for the costumes department. So just keep your sizes updated and don't actively lie about anything. Okay, so when it comes to special skills in your resume, don't lie there either. For me, in the early years of my career, when I was doing a ton of improv, I had so many dialects listed on my special skills. I was very proud. And then I started to see audition notices where they specifically said, do not audition unless you can convince a native that you are from that part of the country or that part of the world. That's when I realized that all of my dialects that I claimed to be good at were improv dialects. That is, you're on stage on a Friday night in front of a crowd and you're doing a version of a dialect or an accent that is how Americans think the rest of the world talks. And it's done with exaggeration. It's done for comedy. So I realized that I was not proficient at as many dialects as I thought. And so I whittled those down to just a few that I felt comfortable with. And when it comes to physical activities like gymnastics, dancing, martial arts, do not exaggerate your skill level. Just because I was awarded my black belt in 1994 does not mean I have those same skills today. And just because I've technically been playing guitar since 1990 doesn't mean I can play more than 6 chords right now if I pulled that guitar off the wall. So I have to be very careful about how I advertise those skills because anything that is listed in that section on your resume is something you should be able to do on a moment's notice right now with very little preparation. Otherwise, you could end up in hot water if you let people think that you're an expert in playing guitar, and then when they spring that on you at the audition, the callback, or on set, and you can't do it, and now they wonder why they hired you. Okay, now let's talk about you're doing a self-tape, and in the slate, they're asking for certain information, namely your local hire status. Or maybe they're asking this in the notes section, or maybe your agent is asking you this ahead of time. First of all, most actors don't even know the difference between a local hire, regional hire, or a distant hire. And if you don't, I invite you to check out Erica Bream's recent Instagram post that I'll link in the show notes below. The bottom line is actors tend to not really care what they mean. They just really want to know which answer is going to increase my chances of booking this role. But if you lie that you're local to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and then you find out that even though the shoot date is in 2 months, you suddenly have to be in Argentina tomorrow and you don't have your passport yet, yikes. Not only is that going to be very expensive, but impossible to get a passport that quickly. And then you get down there by some miracle, and then they change their mind, and it's really not going to be shot for another month and a half. And so you're stuck in Argentina spending a lot of money. Okay, so that was an extreme example, but a very real example that happened was an actor from LA lied about being a local here in Atlanta. They book a job, they come in, they shoot, everything goes fine. No one is the wiser. They go back to LA. They probably spent a whole lot of money on that ticket, possibly on housing themselves. Anyways, 2 weeks later, production needs to do reshoots of that scene. But now the actor starts to play hardball and says, I can't fly back in. You'll have to pay for my flight. Ooh, well, the production caved. They flew the actor back in, and you might be thinking, woo, so they had leverage. They were able to get production to pay. Sure. But that casting director was livid. They burned a bridge with that casting director. And do you think that casting director will ever allow that actor to audition for them again? No. And so you have to ask yourself, if you're going to lie about a local hire status, it's a very risky thing to do, because not only are you potentially going to lose money on the job by paying for a flight or having to suddenly be in that city a lot earlier than you thought. So you might have to change your flight or buy a last second red-eye flight that costs 3 times the amount of money that you expected to pay. So you might lose money in the job, but you also might burn a bridge if something like that happens where you can't fulfill your duty due to some sort of last second schedule change. And let's talk about special skills again. Let's say in the slate or in the live audition, they're asking you about your horseback riding experience. If you rode a pony once at a carnival, don't lie and say that you're proficient at horseback riding, because if you book that job, God forbid, and you get on set, you're not only going to probably burn a ton of bridges, hold up production, but you also might injure yourself or someone else. So don't lie about that type of thing. If you're not comfortable with dogs, and this is a dog commercial, don't lie and say that you are comfortable. If you're allergic to a food or just don't like a certain food, don't audition for that commercial because you're going to have to eat it. And what are you going to do when you get on set and you suddenly have to eat over and over, take after take, the very food that you hate or, God forbid, are allergic to? Don't lie. Okay, now I want to just talk about the audition request itself. This is sort of a general note, and it's kind of weird because it's more about lying by omission than it is an outright lie. Let's say in the audition request, there's something stated that you are not willing to do or can't do. For instance, nudity or sexual situations. Or maybe the shoot dates are very firm and they happen to conflict with your wedding. When you submit that self-tape, you are tacitly agreeing to those terms that have already been set forth in the audition request. So why audition? Unless you're going to tell them ahead of time what your boundaries are, what your schedule conflicts are. If you give them all the information up front, then you're allowing casting to make the decision as to whether or not they should still consider you for this role. But if you lie by omission, and then you get interest from casting for that role, maybe it's an avail check, maybe it's a pin, maybe it's a booking. Oh, now you're in that very difficult situation. And again, you run the risk of burning a bridge. And let me use one last anecdote to make my final point. We had an actor come tape with us years ago, and when they arrived, they were freaking out because this audition required them to sing, and they couldn't sing. They were not good. And so we were wondering, well, why did you agree to audition in the first place? They were afraid. They were very afraid of singing, but they were more afraid of their agent. They had a fear that if they said no to this audition, that their agent would drop them. Or if they said no to this audition, the casting director would never see them again. And that made us so sad. Because for Brooke and I, our entire mission at Get Taped is to dispel fear. It's why we're so passionate about the Sam Christensen image process. Heck, if you take any of our classes at Get Taped, you will experience empowerment, the opposite of fear. We work tirelessly to take away those fears and teach you how to stand in your power. But it's clear there are a lot of situations where actors are tempted to lie or exaggerate or omit the truth because of this pervasive fear. You fear that your lack of experience will cause you to be overlooked, so you lie in your resume. You fear that if you turn down this audition, you'll never get an audition again. You fear that this audition is your pathway to fame and stardom, and so you have to do it. You fear your agent will drop you if you say no to this audition, or that casting will never see you again if you say no to this audition. You fear, you fear, you fear. And if you're experiencing any of this fear right now, you need to stop. It's time to recalibrate. These fears exist between your ears. They're not real. They're fabricated in your mind. And while there are agents and casting directors and teachers that are guilty of filling your head with these fears, that's on them. They are the problem, not you. It's time you gain dominion over these thoughts. It's time to find peace and confidence in who you are right now, what you can do right now. And of course, you should endeavor always to get better. We here at Get Taped are firm believers in having a growth mindset. Like I said, if you were to take any of our offerings at Get Taped, you'll experience this replacing fear with knowledge and empowerment. But if you're currently auditioning or you currently have an agent, you need to stop lying and exaggerating and omitting the truth because you think you're not good enough otherwise, or you think that you won't book otherwise. Auditions are like waves crashing onto the beach. They're infinite. They'll never stop. There will always be another opportunity to catch that wave. For as long as you stand on that beach, for as long as you get into the water, there will always be more. So be careful of that FOMO, that fear of missing out, that fear that the waves will somehow stop coming, because that fear is what is going to lead you to lie or exaggerate or omit the truth. I hope this message is loud and clear. And like I teased at the beginning, if you're brave enough, drop a comment below of something that you used to maybe lie or exaggerate about on your resume. I already mentioned my dialects debacle. What about you? That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on set.